If you remember Hello Neighbor, then you'd probably remember that the game was infamous for its bugs and glitches. A while back I made a video on what happened with the first game, but today I decided to do the same with its official sequel. Spoiler alert, this game kind of followed what the original game did, where the alphas were better than the final build. And no, I'm not here to criticize this game, as a lot of you who watch my channel, you'd know that I'm notorious for making Hello Neighbor videos because I'm a longtime fan. I'm just here to explain its lost potential, problems, and more. But without further ado, let's get started. This all started with a code coming from the multiplayer spin-off, Secret Neighbor. In one of the updates for this game, there was a teleportation machine that would spawn you into a room. But why would anybody search for a code? Well, this code was from a URL on the Secret Neighbor website, where they would find a message on a billboard saying /HGP. When plugging this message on the website, they're given a button that says don't press that button. But of course we press it, which would then download a file named HGP 5.7z. After opening it, we then need to use an encrypted password to play the game. But after a Secret Neighbor update, there would be a mysterious door that would require a keycard to open it. When going outside, there would be a crow flying around the house, holding a keycard. After shooting it, the crow would drop the keycard, which would then unlock the mysterious door, revealing the teleportation machine in the room. But the problem here is that the machine was under construction, so we had to wait for more updates. And as updates would go on, the machine would get bigger until it was finally ready. But the other problem here is that the machine didn't have power. This was because there was a broken windmill that would give the machine power. But when doing some literal digging around the house, missing pieces to the windmill would be found, and would activate the teleporter during a storm. This machine would warp us into a room that had a 4-colored code that would be used for a printer in the game, where you can type this code in. This would give them 4 singular numbers that contained 80 numbers that would be used as the password. So players had to redo the same Easter egg 20 different times, and after typing in the password, they would be led to a game called Hello Guest. And when looking at the game, it was pretty scary, though in my opinion, the first game's pre-alpha was scarier. Now this build was a prototype, but the game already looked promising. This would be the first Hello Neighbor game in a while that lacked bugs. Here's how the game works. You're a security guard working the night at an abandoned amusement park called Golden Apple, where you're supposed to scare away these vandals to prevent money loss. Meanwhile, a creepy figure in a bird outfit would play some kind of weeping angel role, which is kind of like red light green light, where he moves when you're not looking and stops when you turn around. At the time, this figure was known as, well, the guest, who in my opinion, is scarier than the neighbor. But anyways, in order to beat the game, you need to power on a roller coaster so you can activate a ride that'll break a wall to reveal what's behind it. You'll need 6 gas tanks and 2 batteries. But where can you find these items? Well, there's a time limit where when you run out of time, the sun comes up and the game will take you to a store. The store has a lot of useful items that can help you achieve your goal. When grabbing all of the more useful items, you can use the gas tanks to fill up the ride before turning valves to keep it running. Then, find the roller coaster and go through this horrifying ride with probably some lore. And when using the battery fuses, you'll be able to flip a switch to activate the ride, destroying the wall that reveals a mysterious building called Mayak. And the game ends. But this ending isn't the only one, because if you get caught too many times, the guest will blow up the wall and destroy the Mayak building. Then several months later, the game would get an official alpha, where you play as 2 characters, Quentin and Beatrix. The goal in this alpha is a bit different from the prototype, where instead of powering rides, you're solving puzzles to be able to get up this red tower. You'll need to use a generator, a fire extinguisher, and a camera. But just like the prototype, you stop the vandals from damaging buildings, you have a time limit, and you'll be able to buy useful items for your journey in the amusement park. Now, despite this game having slightly more bugs than the prototype, I found it to be better because it doesn't feel as bright as the prototype and there are more textured stuff. Now, using the generator, you can flip some switches to copy the spot the lights are in. You'll need to do this twice. After doing so, you'll be able to make your way up the tower, and you can fire extinguish your way down the other side of the park, which would trigger a cutscene, showing off a new character known as the Man in the Hat. Once he comes towards you, the game ends. So far, this was a huge step in the right direction, in which you can wander around an open-world amusement park solving puzzles, and also experience some horror vibes. But the question is, where is Hello Guest Alpha 2? Well, this build was called Rumble on the Mill, which reveals some more content, and the identity of the guest, who turned out to be the neighbor. However, this was scrapped for a new game called Hello Neighbor 2. The developers would give us Alpha 1 for this game. After the announcement for Hello Neighbor 2, the Hello Guest Alpha was also known as the Pre-Alpha. Here's how this alpha works. You play as Quentin, who is searching for Mr. Peterson, who got kidnapped and trapped in his attic by the guest. you'll need to use a crowbar, a key, some rope, and a fire extinguisher. To get the crowbar, you'll need to make the guest punch in a code for the gate, and you'll also need to use a camera for this objective. After watching him punch the code, that'll be the code you'll use to unlock the gate and grab the crowbar. Since this is an alpha, you'll be able to use an alarm clock and toss it through the gate after turning it on. To get the key, you'll need to prevent the guest from fueling the fire by causing a distraction, or you can use a fire extinguisher to make this process faster as long as the guest is farther away from the furnace, since his AI in this build is more advanced than the neighbors. After doing so, you can grab the key and use the 2 items to unlock the attic. But wait a minute, how are you gonna be able to get in there? Well, if you climb to the top of a burned house next to the neighbors, you'll find the rope, and you can use it to get the fire extinguisher behind the neighbor's house in a part of a building before the key objective. After managing to get into the attic, you'll find a bird costume, and after looking out the open attic door, you'll be able to see the neighbor and the man in the hat. After exiting the attic, the game ends. Now, even though Hello Guest sounded like a more interesting concept, this was looking like the developers were listening to the players' feedback from the first game. In October, the game would receive a new alpha called Alpha 1.5, which is kind of like Alpha 1 but with Halloween decor, less bugs, and more challenging puzzles. The goal in this game is to save 3 trick-or-treaters from the attic while avoiding the guest once again. You'll need the same items from the previous alpha, but also with a generator and cord. The generator is useful to get the crowbar, since you'll need to activate a conveyor belt to drop the crowbar onto using a fire extinguisher to give out enough pressure to drop the crowbar, or throw some items through the fence that's blocking it. You can then go outside and get the crowbar. Getting the key is still the same from the previous alpha, or it's trapped in a running furnace, but this objective is more challenging. To do this, you'll need to throw some objects toward a lever that'll reverse the conveyor belt that's moving objects into the furnace to keep the fire going. Using a fire extinguisher will obviously make this process faster again, however, the guest will still come back, but also switch the conveyor belt lever. So a distraction is still necessary. After managing to get the key, you'll be able to unlock the attic. After using some rope, you'll be able to get into the attic, where you'll see 2 depressed trick-or-treaters, and another one behind a locked door. To finish off the game, you'll need to go around the town and break into houses to grab candy to fill up a sack, which would have the trapped trick-or-treater move closer to the door. And by the way, a generator is useful for one of the houses. After filling up the sack, the trick-or-treaters would disappear, and the neighbor would appear behind the locked door, begging for help. After this, the screen would go black and reveal that this was probably a game inside of a game. The game then shows Quentin sitting in his office and is about to give out candy to someone knocking on his door. But once he gets closer, the person knocks even harder before the game ends, asking how your weather is. So far, the game was getting better and more promising. After several months of silence from the developers, they would release an AI trailer, where the game would be powered by a neural network AI, which was the biggest selling point. For those of you who don't know what this kind of AI would do, it would learn from all the players, meaning that the AI would get smarter and smarter, by having the enemy take notes of player behavior. After a little while, the developers would reveal that the game would be open world and that players would interact with the people in Raven Brooks. The game was supposed to be released in 2021, but got delayed from the creator stepping down, so the game would be released the following year. In late 2021, they would announce the closed beta for this game, which would release on April 7, 2022. By looking at this game, it was completely different from the alphas. The goal in this game is to save a child who is stuck in the attic of a museum. You'll be facing off against several people in Raven Brooks, those of who being a cop, a baker, a fisherman, the mayor, and, once again, the neighbor. Now you can start the game in whatever order you choose, and after completing the game, the guest would appear from behind before the game ends. Now, this was pretty much a disappointment to a lot of people, because they were expecting an advanced AI. But this AI was just as worse, if not worse than the first game's AI. Then in September, the game would get an official gameplay demo, which is advertised as a way for the developers to show off what the gameplay would look like in the full game. Then on December 6th, the game would officially fail. This is because, before launch, the developers would remove the words on SteamDB, which would go from saying, "The neighbor is controlled by an AI that learns from the players," to, "The neighbors are controlled by advanced AIs." However, the AI was far from being advanced. Not to mention, this game had bugs, a lackluster open world, and the price being way too expensive. This game had 3 DLC packs, in which I don't feel like talking about much, but I will say that they're worse than the base version. So to make up for all of this, they would release multiple patches to make the game better, and we were supposed to get a 10th patch, but it was confirmed by the creator, who reunited with Eerie Guest for a new Hello Neighbor game, that this update was officially cancelled, which was a massive disappointment, because a lot of people waited over a year for another update since the game was still not even finished after 9 patches. So just like Hello Neighbor 1, this game is officially abandoned. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies for not talking about your achievements in the beta, demo, and full game, but this video was taking a bit longer than I expected to finish up, so I recommend watching other videos to use as guides. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video, and Happy New Year, bye.